Hello, welcome pen friends. My name is Chris and I'm back with another ink profile. We're working our way right through ink flight number 24 from Ink Journal, the 7 samples, and we're on the third one. So today it's the Taccia, and I'm not sure how to pronounce this, but it's golden wheat in English, so we'll stick with that. And oh, what an interesting ink this is. So let's just get started. Let's see here. We'll put it in the bath test as usual, and we will take a look at the prior ink, the one that was that blue, and I'll show you that again. So this is the result of the bath test on the blue ink that we did last time. It stayed pretty much the same as it did when I showed you at the, at the point where we took a peek at it. So it's, can read it and everything, and it's just blurry. So that was very interesting. Okay, we'll let that work, and we'll get right into the Rhodia Gold Book ink journal that I keep. And we'll see that we're plugging along slowly. Whoops, there goes the chromatography. We now have 3 to see here on our spread, and then here we are. This ink turned out to be quite a bit darker than I thought it was, but it also has that capacity to go lighter. So I found that it was darker than even than the KWZ Standard Honey, which we'll flip back on and we'll look at in just a second here. Just like the rest of the inks from this brand, I'm finding them at Anderson, Van Ness, and Pen Chalet here in the United States, all for about the same price, but you'll want to check into it because you can get like a 4 mil sample from Pen Chalet or a 3 mil sample from Anderson. So I always recommend a sample. Ink sample. Did I say pen sample? I'm not sure. But anyway, let's go ahead and flip back real quickly on, I think it's KWZ Standard Honey that I wanted to flip back to. Yeah, here it is. Now, it's hard because I can't show them side by side. But I have noticed that KWZ Standard Honey is quite a bit lighter. So let's just try to give it a fair shot there in the sun coming from the left there helps quite a bit. So it's quite a bit lighter, and maybe that'll just help get us anchored to start with. And here is the chromatography, which I thought was amazing. That is so interesting how it did that, how it looks gray and pink and yellow, and I'm not sure what that is, orange. But anyway, that was just amazing, and I thought it came out well, and it shows how much complexity there is really in there. Okay, so let's move on to some other notebooks. We'll get into the Cafe Note, as usual, from Nanami Paper Company, Tomoe River Paper in here. And I did the usual thing. I put it in the broad nib on this side, the Serendipity, and then the Lamy Fine nib here on the right. Now, you notice a difference. You definitely notice that it lightens as you go down into this fine nib. Whoops, I guess I smeared it earlier because this has been dry for a long time. But I like it. I actually like how dark it is. And it shades real nicely. Let's see. I'm not sure whether you'll be able to see the shading, but I was pleased with the shading in the broad nib. And I still thought, I thought it wasn't, in comparison to the other two, the purple red and the blue, the first 2 we did, then I didn't think it was quite as saturated, but it still was pleasing to me. And we'll see that throughout the samples. You can see the difference. So let's just go on to the final notebook, and then we'll get into the paper samples. This little Nemesine notebook here is a favorite of mine. I don't know what possessed me. I wanted to see the lighter shades, so I made splatters with my paintbrush, and then I went and, kind of dabbed with my finger because I wasn't happy with how it just looked like a mistake, and now it just looks like a 3-year-old had fun. So it's okay. At least it shows a range of what happens, and you can see my fingerprints in there. But anyway, it did do something worthwhile for me. I really wanted to see the contrast and shading, and that's what I ended up with, all right. And then I put this ink, today's Golden Wheat, I put it on my Moonman glass nib pen and wrote with it just a little here. I said the ink reminds me of the roadside, some of the foliage in Vermont in early spring when things haven't quite popped yet, has that color, that beautiful wheat color. And in fact, I've been known to take pictures of all of that, even though it's not green. So anyway, I like how it looked on this paper very much. Okay, so now let's look at some paper samples, starting with my very favorite paper to write letters on, the Tomoe River 52 gram. And there it is. I like to kind of, I think we'll have all 7 before we're through, and that'll be really nice to look at them together. Here it is in the broad nib, and then there it is in the Lamy fine nib. So you can probably see what I mean. It appears to drop down lighter, but it wasn't dry coming out of the nib. I don't want to give that impression. I didn't feel like it was dry. It just was a noticeable drop. See, there was hardly any difference with the red. I guess there was some, and then very little with the blue. And then maybe it's my eye, but I felt like it was quite a bit. That's still a very nice writing experience. So let's get on to Leuchtturm 1917 dot grid paper from, this is what I use in my bullet journal. Here it is in the broad Yowo nib, and there it is in the Lamy fine nib. And it did, you know, I actually fiddled with the pen several different times just to make sure that I wasn't having any kind of feeding issue. And I didn't seem like I was. I've never have issues with that pen. But I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't starving or anything, because I felt like there was such a difference. And I'm really interested. I hope I'm not the only one that maybe sees this, so that then I could find out it wasn't just me. Because it could be. It could always be, you know, a technical error or a pen problem that I'm not aware of. So here's the Clairefontaine 90 gram French rule. I felt like it was happy on this paper. Very, very happy. You can see or I can see the shading. I hope you could see some of it on both the fine nib and the broad nib. Nice shading, and it just was, it likes that paper. It gets to sit there and take a little longer to dry, and that makes it nice. That makes it look pretty, I think. Okay, here's the Rhodia 80 gram dot grid paper. There it is, and in the broad nib and in the fine nib. Nice, again, very nice, I thought. I actually enjoyed it on this paper. This ink brand as a whole is really, really nice for me. I find it perfect. Here's the Office Depot College Rule, the more economical paper there, out of my notebook. And here it is in the broad nib and in the fine nib. And this is thirstier paper, so it was quite happy there too. You know, I mean, it didn't, I see just a tad of shading. Let's compare it to the, interesting. It kind of liked the cheaper paper better than the Leuchtturm paper, which is just one of those things, I guess. And also it's me, you know, it's my opinion too. Okay, let's check in on this, and then we'll get to our comparison panel. Aha! Now we've seen this happen a lot, where you just end up with the pigment, the darker, the gray, or that's got to be the gray that we were seeing in the chromatography too, which I probably have lost by now. Oh, I have a hard time with, I have to clean up right away, or I end up losing the little elements, pieces to these things. Okay, let's get that water out of there. Okay, here's our panel that I did just special for this, and our ink of the day is right in the middle. You know, I gotta show this, because as much as I don't want to, I did notice that it kind of went on darker, and I have no idea why. And it's not by much, but I don't know if it's because it's so cold today, there's a difference in the weather, or whether I went heavier. I don't think so. I try to do these very kind of consistently and quickly, so, but I did want to point that out, because I'm not sure which is more typical. It is a little darker on this panel, and that irks me, but there you go. I thought it was going to be a lot more similar to KWZ Honey than it is. It is darker, even when you compare the other one, in case that happens to be the more accurate. You see that? There is a big difference. And it kind of, what it does for me is it means this is more unique than I thought. You know, it isn't exactly like that, nor is it exactly like Robert Oster Cafe Crema, which is very kind of, at first glance, it's reminiscent. This, the camera and lighting tend to, you know, distort things just a little. So that's why I wanted to put some on here that we might just use as a has a control, like the SBRE brown. There's a little similarity, but it's much, much brighter, the brown, SBRE brown. So, and then here we go to the opposite extreme with the Sitz Krusnock chestnut brown, and also these two. The two Monteverde inks, the Scotch brown and the brown sugar, which really kind of veered off the deep end, but I think it's still good because we can compare them real well that way. And then a couple more warmer, lighter browns, the golden brown, Noodler's golden brown, and Papier Plume caramel. So it was hard to get it to, it was like, is it a golden brown or is it a dark brown? It's somewhere in the middle, which I think is really neat. So there you have it. I hope this will be useful for you, even though we know that it's not 100% accuracy with lighting and the camera variable and, the paper. This is 140-pound watercolor paper. I just happen to like seeing it on here and on the other papers, but there we have it. Let's see what happened with the visual journal. That was fun and interesting. This ink kind of moves quickly. So this is the Nick Stewart, my attempt at the Nick Stewart technique, where you put the water down and then you put ink and see what happens, and then you come back in as it's drying and add little features. But this ink is incredibly quick to move and disperse. So, and then when it dries, there aren't as many details, which has to do with how much water got put down too. So I'm just trying to adjust myself to this ink when I've been using drier inks for so long. Here it is. I think this might have been this was the first one I tried, and it got away from me real fast there. But it does show a lot of neat variances in color, and I attempted to get some trees. It just looks like there's a puff of smoke in front of it. So there was that, and then this one, which kind of got away from me. At first it looked like it might be a nice little reflection look, but no, it went nuts. I might have put too much water. So I would play around with it a little more maybe and try to see whether I could use a little less water but still get enough to have movement and have it come out. But it's always fun no matter what. So, that was cool. Okay, so as far as what's next, we're moving right along. And for our people who love green, green is next. It's going to be, in English, it's referred to as olive green. And here it is. So that'll be neat. That's the next one. And I am continuing to just really, really benefit from my, I guess you could call it decluttering, but I'm doing the KonMarie method throughout my house. The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. I had read the book, and then this year I watched, as soon as it came on Netflix, I watched the series, which kind of made her techniques come to life for me. And not everything works exactly perfect for me, but I've always liked to work in categories, which she recommends. And how eye-opening that is when you say get everything, like all of your plates, say, for instance. Actually, the most startling so far was when we got all of our cups and moved them to the dining hall. Dining hall. That's the Air Force coming out. To our dining room table. So I'm talking about, like, we got mugs and cups and everything that resembled a cup, and we put them all on the table, and oh my goodness, it was no wonder I don't have room in the shelf. But anyway, one of the most interesting things that I had kept, and you're going to be surprised at the final outcome. I had kept a great big, well, not great big, it's a two speaker parts, and it's got a radio and the 8-track player that was my dad's, that was very shortly, right before he got cancer, his best friend, which had been like an uncle to me, had died, and he ended up inheriting this 8-track player with a radio, and Dad had it down cellar, and when he would make cars, he made wooden cars, which, let me get one, it's worth it. So my dad made cars and trucks and things like that, wooden ones, down cellar in his at his workbench, and Yeah, so he made these things, and he would listen to that music. Now, I don't know what he used before he inherited that, and I think it was 2012 that he inherited the 8-track player, and he probably had a radio or something, but I would hear all these songs, and a lot of the songs had been on albums when we were kids. So when Dad was at work, Mom let me put on the albums, and I was really familiar with Jim Reeves and all of the different country singers. Some of the other 8-tracks are like Johnny Cash and John Denver and all that kind of stuff that I grew up listening to. But anyway, I would hear, the saws and the music, and especially those last 3 years, that I was there a lot. And there was one particular song, this one here, Billy Bayou, that when I hear that song, it's a happy memory, and it makes me think of Dad in a happy way, because whenever he was able to be down there working on the cars, which were just amazing, made out of hardwood, from Vermont, and this one was hand stamped too, Holland, Vermont. Anyway, it's been almost 4 years now since he passed, and when I first pulled out the 8-tracks and this monstrosity of a stereo thing, I thought, well, I really shouldn't keep this because I haven't listened to it in a long time. But then I thought about her technique. She says, does it spark joy? So I thought, okay, first off, I don't know, because it's kind of hard. I got to set it up. But I had moved my big bookcase out of the office, and I had all that space on top of the bookcase. So I thought, well, let me set it up, plug it in, see if it still works, and see whether it is joyful or it's just sucks or what. So I plugged it in, and first I found out the radio had amazing sound. It was crazy. And I remember Dad telling me that they don't make them like this anymore. And of course it was messy. When I got it, it was covered with sawdust. So and I know I'm way off topic here. That's why I like to leave these things to the very end. But I will eventually be getting to all of the ink and fountain pen and, hobby stuff, and putting it to the test with her method too. So it's going to get there, but she says to leave that kind of thing toward the end if it's sentimental to you at all. Well, these are sentimental, but it was also, I didn't realize at first, I thought that I was going to donate it, is what I thought. But I just really enjoyed hearing the music, and it didn't, it made me cry at first, but it didn't make me sad. It actually made me start to remember more of the good times, and I thought, why not? Use it till it breaks. Use it till it doesn't work anymore. I love it, and I loved hearing the radio. So it was kind of weird hearing, first I had this on, and then I had the local, the more modern music coming out of the radio. So it's going good, but that's where, if you're wondering any day where I am, because I normally like to do more videos, I am just furiously working through, and I said that's a weird word, I'm, happily and very enthusiastically working my way through every single thing that I own in the house and making these decisions. And so now in my staging area, I have music, so that's great. I mean, I had my little MP3 player with all my stuff, and I can still go back and forth. I can plug in a speaker to that, but it's kind of fun. So I just wanted to share it with you because I do have a lot of enthusiasm. I always have for tidying up, but I've never quite had it click like this. This is some really cool stuff. And I'll tell you, when I first started, what I noticed more was not what sparked joy, but what I just really wanted to get rid of. Like, I would have a reaction, a negative reaction to something, and I would just know immediately it had to go. And now I'm starting to get better with, it's not quite like that anymore. It's easier for me to think about what sparks joy, and there's that feeling that I'm now recognizing, rather than some things that just completely, like, send you through the ceiling, like, why did I keep this? This is absolutely nuts. Anyway, okay, rant over. Good luck to anybody who is also working on this stuff, and I'll see you back with Taccia Olive Green very soon. But keep in mind, I'm going through all my stuff, so we'll see you soon. Bye for now.